Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's November 20, 2019, and this is episode 685. So I'm sitting here today in my studio, my humble very little Tokyo studio, with a very good, an oldish friend now, but I don't mean as in you're old, but we've known each other for a number of years now, and I'm very happy to be sitting here today with Brian Wood-Koiwa. So Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me to your home studio.
It's you're very much welcome. I really have. I've been meaning to do this for a number of years. I love your street photography and your way of thinking. So what we're going to do today is to dig into a little bit of both of those areas. And before we do that, obviously we're both Western people living here in Japan.
Yeah.
What brought you to Japan?
Well, it was back in 2000, so almost 20 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
And I just wanted something different. Well, I've traveled the world a lot.
Yeah.
I was in the Peace Corps, and so I was living in Boston for 5 years, and I just thought, well, it's time to go abroad again.
Yeah.
But I did the adventure travel before being in Peace Corps and doing this things on my own. So I thought, well, I'll just get a job.
Yeah.
And I heard that Japan was just easy to get a job.
Oh, okay.
Teaching English at first.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I came over and just taught English for a couple of years. Then just a couple months into my stay here, actually I lived here in the same town as you are. And I met my husband, future husband, just a couple months later. So, and then I just stayed.
Oh, wow. Okay. Brilliant. So that was you getting to Japan. Was photography a part of your life before that, or
no?
After coming to Japan?
I wish it were, because, being in Peace Corps, I was in Central Africa. I mean, I had a little point and shoot camera. This was in the early 90s, so it was film.
Yeah.
But I had no, it was just like everybody has a camera.
Yeah.
So I had that, but I didn't really use it to take photos. I took a few snapshots of us, our group.
Yeah.
Or in the rainforest. I was in the rainforest. So, but yes, I wish I was more into it then. But no, I didn't get into it until way into the digital era. So not until I came here. Not until here in Japan. So
okay. I guess, for me, I got into photography in my teens, and I did a bit as I started to walk in the hills in Derbyshire in England, but it was coming to Japan and the totally different culture and everything that really lit a fire for me on my photography as well. So I can totally understand that. So tell us about your main photographic genre. What do you really enjoy doing in your photography?
It's kind of difficult. I guess the very broad genre is street photography. But I've kind of, I've thought about it, and I'm a very shy person. So I'm not one of those people who gets right into your face and takes photos. And it's very difficult for me to do that. And I felt pressured to do that because that's what people say in street photography. Yeah. And I thought, well, no, I'm not going to do that. If I don't feel comfortable doing it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm more interested in the city as the concept and the built environment of the city. So more into the buildings and the architecture. And people are there, but they're not the main focus. So I kind of veered towards I guess it's more just urban photography, which is urban landscapes or urban portraitures, but not people, buildings or street corners or streets, actual streets. And so I kind of started developing that because it's more interesting to me, the shapes, the geometries, the color. With Tokyo, when I first moved to Tokyo, it was a very gray city. And so black and white it works for black and white.
Yeah, yeah.
But now it's becoming a bit more colorful and more interesting architecture and not as concrete as it used to be. So I'm noticing a lot more color in the city. So I've become more interested in color as a result of that.
What would you say is your proportion of color to black and white these days?
I think it's probably about 65-70% color.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it depends on the day. If it's overcast and the gray day, and Tokyo is still pretty gray.
Yeah.
Looking, so that would be black and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's a bright sunny day, then the colors will pop.
Yeah.
Or, so, and I do film a lot.
Yeah.
So it also has to do with what film I have in the camera.
Yeah.
And that kind of dictates it. So.
Yeah. So you've, as you say, you're using film, and I have to thank you once again. A few weeks ago, I spoke with a mutual friend of ours, Jack Derner, and we mentioned in that as well. But you'd put me onto the lab box. It was, a few weeks ago we were talking as we often do by email, and you mentioned the lab box, and I think I'd ordered it before I finished reading the end of your email. A little bit, as is often the case with me, I was a little bit too hasty, and because then later you told me about the spindle, so I had to get another package over from Hong Kong, which is where I found that sort of one of the nearest places I could get one from. But I have absolutely fallen in love with that little genius device. So I want to thank you for telling me about that.
Sure. I didn't use it. I haven't even used it when I told you. So.
Yeah. Well, you've used it now, though.
Yeah.
We've both been developing film in that over the last few days, really.
Yeah.
And I just literally a couple of hours ago released a video of my first attempt. And you'll see behind you there is another film. I actually sat down today without the video cameras and without the need to make a video, and just sat and went through my second roll with the lab box. And it was almost like a meditative experience. I just got all of the chemicals ready, loaded the film, and just sat there cranking every 20 seconds or so for 10 seconds. And it was almost meditative. I found that it was so much more fun. And have you ever used the Patterson bag? And no,
I mean, that was the lab box was the first time I ever developed anything.
Oh, wow. So that's even better. I mean, I used the Patterson bag, and I know a lot of people like them, and I definitely don't want to necessarily knock them because they've been the way for people. It's been a great entry, but I feel as though the lab box is just, for me, exactly what I was waiting for. So really, I thank you for telling me about it. And
the whole bag blindly doing that. I just did not interest me.
Yeah.
So,
well, you watched my video from 4 years ago, right? I mean, it wasn't a lot of fun. But the lab box it's as easy almost as loading. You've just watched me load my first film in my Yasha for 4 years, putting it in the wrong end of the camera and everything. So I shouldn't really say it's as easy as loading the film, but it really is a very easy process. So I'm really happy with it, and I've got some nice photos coming out of it. So it's all good stuff.
I like it because I know the Patterson's kind of portable, but this is very portable.
Yeah.
And I do the continuous. I only fill it halfway up.
Yeah.
And I do the continuous agitation, so
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about timing and all that. Just do it.
Yeah.
And it's great because we have a dog, and when I'm doing it, he's getting into something. So I have to pick up the box while I'm cranking and yell at him, while I'm cranking around, agitating.
Yeah.
So I can move around and do other things. Because it takes, like I did a roll a couple nights ago, and it was called for 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Cranking, which isn't that bad, really.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be, oh my God, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But with the crank thing,
the
added extra.
The optional crank.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad at all, and it went by fast.
Yeah.
And,
Does your crank squeak as you?
Yeah.
It makes it's a bit annoying squeak, isn't it? So yeah, brilliant stuff though. So you're doing sort of just over half is, I guess you're having to send your color film to the lab, right?
Yeah. So recently I've been doing more black and white because I wanted to practice developing. So I'm doing more black and white now. But yeah, I just go to Yodobashi here.
Yeah.
And just, I have one developing right now.
Yeah.
It takes a long time.
Does it really?
Well, I get a I forgot the English word. Contact sheet.
Oh yeah.
And so that takes a long time because I have to send it to, I use Kodak Ektar.
Oh,
usually.
I see. Yeah.
But the contact sheet has to go to Fuji. So it takes another week.
Yeah. Well, Fuji are pretty much, I mean, they're like, I was looking through a scanning of my original manual for my Yashica, and at the end, it's got the films that you can use with, it's like a list of recommended films. And in there was only two that I recognized that I thought initially were still in business, and that's Kodak and Agfa. And I checked, and Agfa actually closed their doors about a year and a half ago as well. But at the time, Fujifilm was not on that list. So I thought, well, Fujifilm weren't even around making film then. I think it was like 40 years ago when that camera and the manual was made. But I looked, and I actually found that as some companies closed their doors, this resurgence of the popularity of film, Fujifilm are actually releasing a Mark II of their Neopan film next week.
Acros.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, well, Neopan, I used to use that. It would have been almost 30 years ago now when I first came to Japan. Love that film. And they're saying it's almost grainless.
Yeah.
So, and the wonderful thing is, having spent 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out what chemicals I need to process with the Fuji chemicals, and thinking, I don't really have the space for 2 complete sets of chemicals. I looked online and in the Massive Dev app, and you can develop it with the DDX that we've been using as well. So yeah, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, Acros is probably my favorite black and white.
Really?
And they discontinued not even a year ago, I think.
Yeah, but that's probably because they knew they were working on the Mark II
thing going on there. So I don't know when they're bringing it back, but I heard they're bringing it back.
Yeah, it's I've got 2 rolls ordered. It's supposed to be November 22nd is the day the new Mark II version
here in Japan.
Here in Japan. I don't know about other countries, but hopefully it'll be a widespread thing.
With film, people, when I starting to do film, people are saying, well, it's best to pick a film that you like, or either black and white or color. And I just can't do that.
Yeah.
I like trying all different films, and it just depends on my mood. And like now I'm like, Ektar is quite nice for color, or Portra.
Yeah.
Fuji, I'm not so keen for color.
Yeah.
And for black and white, it's Acros or I guess Tri-X, but Tri-X is kind of
I've the roll that I've got there is Delta 400, ISO 400, and I've earlier this week I that was a Delta 100. The one I did before that was HP5, and there's a definite increase in the sort of, I want to just say resolution, thinking of from a digital perspective, but they're much sharper images with the Delta over the HP5. So
I just used the Delta 100 as my last one I developed.
Yeah, it's beautiful film.
I like 100 films, or 400 is very convenient.
Yeah,
so but I like the 100 look.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it really isn't. It's nice to be sitting here talking with someone about film, because I have been so digital, concentrating on digital for so long, and I love digital. I mean, that will remain my main format. But film is just a lot of fun, So it's nice to chat about it. So, in your photography, you and your coined, I don't know if you coined the phrase, but you referred to your,
Yeah.
I mean, your website's Urban Weird,
Yeah.
urbanweirdphotography.com, is that? I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So Urban Weird, I mean, that whole concept, you talk about on your website, about the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi and how that all ties into your Urban Weird concept. I'd love to talk a little bit about that. So talk a little bit about you sent me a document, and I think you've got this on your website. You were talking about decadence and banality, or the banal. And I love the way you talk about those things. Just tell us. I mean, what does it mean to you?
Well, yeah, I was just writing this down. It was just more of a stream of consciousness kind of thing. So I was just trying to figure out, as many photographers do, trying to figure out their style or for me, my philosophy in photography. So I'm very conceptual when it comes to photography. So I was trying to think of, concepts to match with what I've been doing with photography. And I started with the word weird beginning and what that means. And so it comes from literature called New Weird literature, which is in the beginning of this century.
Yeah.
It was popular. And it's really weird urban fantasy, but urban fantasy now it means Twilight kind of vampires in the city kind of thing.
Yeah.
But New Weird is it's very urban cities, either imagined cities or real cities that have some kind of fantasy going through it that's not really real, and it's very strange, but it's normal to the story. And the theme of decadence, where the city is just decadent, it's falling apart because of past, indulgences, and so the cities just, it's kind of feel like the image of dripping cities, like with the wet and you can see buildings and the stains of the water and the aircon, things like that. So, and Tokyo is very much like that. Yeah. So I got that concept of decadence, of not natural. Decadence is not natural. And then I got into looking at my photography, and I really liked photographing just very, very banal scenes, just street corners, street intersections, just storefronts. Yeah. And how that banality fits in with decadence, because they're kind of opposites.
Yeah.
Okay. Decadence is it's very opulent and, over the top. Think of End of Rome. End of Rome is decadent. And, but then I was thinking, it's like, well, if you take a photo of something banal, then it's not banal anymore, because you're forcing people to actually look at something they would not look at. They would just pass right through, pass right by, and not even notice. Yeah. And so I'm forcing people to look at something like, oh, why didn't I look at that? Why did I pass by that? Yeah. Or I ask myself, why did I take a picture of that? Sometimes when I look at my photos, like, why did I take a picture of that? But I don't know. I look at it, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. So I take a photo of it. Sometimes, not until afterwards, I kind of form something around it. Like, oh, it's the geometry of it. It's the squares. It's the angles. Yeah. It's how they relate to each other. It is the shadows, of course. I love doing bright daylight photography, because I think that's the most interesting. Overcast, I don't know, just nothing. Everything just kind of washes out. Yeah. So like midday sun is great.
With the high contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm kind of molding those concepts good. And wabi sabi, which is imperfect beauty, flaws. Because I'm not a perfectionist. Okay, life's too short to be a perfectionist. So, if I make mistakes, okay, well, I'm not a technical photographer. I learned about that. I learned about that a lot from you. But especially with film, you kind of have to go with if you see something really interesting and you want to take a photo, but I forgot to expose correctly. Oh well. And I'm hybrid, so I digitize. And so I can fix that in the computer, no problem, no big deal. Focus, no big deal, especially with street photography. It's not that big of a deal if it's a little bit out of focus. So it just creates interest, and adds to the story. So all that. So wabi sabi, the banality of things and the decadence of the city, and I think of the city as a living being, and humans are just part of it. It's just incident. They're just incidental, part of it. So they're in the image. They're not the main focus of an image, unless I'm doing street photography.
Yeah. I like the way you talked about it. You have the mathematical symbols with decadence equals and is the opposite of banality, and I thought that was pretty cool and I totally understand what you're saying. The way the city is decadent, but then at the same time it's banal. But is banal really banal, or is banal decadence? And it's
if you take the banality out of context and put it in a frame, then there was a movement called New Topographics back in the 70s. Stephen Shore.
Oh yeah.
They just took banal pictures. Just of the street of and so I got really influenced by those kind of photographers, and when you just take it out of context, it becomes something else. And so that really interested me, and it's shocking, like, why are you taking a picture of that? So that's what I like. And the the decadence of the city. But people, when I do my tours here, people are always, where I take them in out of the way places in the city, and they're kind of amazed how quiet Tokyo is. Quiet. I mean, Tokyo is an extremely quiet city. And and you walk through, and everything is kind of normal. There's nothing special about a lot of the city. To me, or to the person who's visiting Tokyo, the buildings are interesting and all that, but it's just how people are living, where I take them. So it's just that kind of banality of something so huge, and people think of bright neon lights and the Shinjukus and the Shibuyas of Tokyo, but that's just a very tiny part of the city. So
excellent. The audience is going to get a feel for what you're talking about, because we're going to look through three of your are these all recent images?
Ish. The oldest one is 2017.
Okay, so two within the last 2 years.
The other ones are, I think, this year, or about within a year.
So what I'll do is this blog post, if you're listening to this and you have not got a device that is showing you the images that we're talking about, you can go and follow along at mbp.ac/685, and that will take you to a post where I'll put some links in, but also I'll have a small gallery with the three images that we're about to talk about. So tell us a little bit about this first one with the red shoes here, Brian.
I was just walking. It's in my neighborhood, kind of, and I was just walking around the camera with my 35 millimeter film camera. And I just saw this guy standing there. I just saw his sneakers, his red sneakers. And I was like, that's funny. It's just humorous. It was just humorous. And I noticed the shape, the angles of I don't know what that was, like a staircase maybe? That he's standing behind. And so I stopped, and I kind of backed up, and I just kind of framed it. So, because I went ahead and saw him, but I was like, okay, that's not so interesting. So I walked back, and because he's just looking at his phone or something. And so I just took that picture because I thought it
Yeah.
was funny,
Yeah.
and the geometry of it.
Yeah.
It looks like the building has feet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I like the way, I mean, they look like two bricks.
Yep.
It's almost similar color to his shoes. It's as though you've got some, the mirroring of that. But also, as you say, I like the geometry. I know that I've seen a lot of your work, and I'm going to put I'll put a link in the blog post for people to go and check out your street work on your website as well. Because much of it is, some of my favorite images are yours. Like the woman with the umbrella that you did that. And what was the other one that you did? You have one shot where it's a couple behind a polythene sheet. Was
okay,
it?
Yeah.
They were eating. They were in like one of these.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite photos of all time. I absolutely love that. So I definitely urge the audience to go and check out your work on your website.
And that was
well.
with Portra. If anybody interested, that was Portra film.
Which camera was it?
The Leica MP.
Okay. So what size are they? Are they like medium format or
no
35 mil? Yeah.
The M, it's not the N-P. That's a digital. It's the MP. Which
I
is
see.
Film.
Yeah.
So it's the only film one they make still.
Yeah. They still make it.
It's not old. It's like 2003, I think.
Oh wow.
Camera is.
Yeah. So tell us about this next one with the plant.
Well, that I just noticed the poor plant, and I don't know. I guess it comes with the city. I always think that objects have feelings, and they, like what is that poor plant thinking, and why is he there? Why is it there? And it looks kind of sad, but then it looks like it has company with all the cracks of the old decadent building.
Yeah.
Looks like I've gone through a few earthquakes.
Yeah.
And patched up. So it was just it's in Shinjuku area, Shinjuku ward. And I just noticed that I focused right in that tree. And then I noticed the cracks, the verticals of it. And I wanted to get the sense of the corner. Yeah. Like he's just standing on the corner, kind of just like, hey. So
I know what you mean. I put feelings in everything. I mean, we here at home, my wife and I, we thank our appliances when we throw them out. I remember when we moved here to Chofu, she said, "Did you give the washing machine a hug?" And I'm like, I just thought, and we do it all the time. But were you consciously sort of framing it so that you could see down the street here as well? Yeah. It's nice having that bit of a view of Tokyo. Like you say, the city and the grayness that attracts you to it.
Yes, and also it's gray, but once you see the little bits of color, they really pop.
Yeah.
And so even just a dirty yellow wall was, a color in the gray day. So, so that and the blue pot. So, I'm really it depends on what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for shapes, if I'm in the mood for shapes, I pop in black and white.
I see.
If I'm in the mood for color, then I pop in color. If I have the choice of popping in a film. Because 36 exposures is way too much for me. I hate that. Wish it was more 24 exposures.
It's actually liberating having these 12
I know,
frame,
I love it.
the medium format 12 frames is great, isn't it?
I do that in half hour. Okay, done.
So
just as this another, it's kind of banal. It's just a corner and then just a grungy little street. But it's interesting because it has that plant. Yeah. I mean, that happens a lot in Tokyo. People have their plants out on the street. Dying. So, and this was just all by itself. And it was just,
it's lovely. So let's take a look at the third one. I know what attracted you to this.
Yeah.
So
this is the oldest one. This is in 2017. I don't know where it was in the city, but I saw the lamppost, and I saw the shadow first. I thought, okay, will be an interesting shot. Then I started looking around to the buildings, the walls and the building, and I noticed the colors and how they're kind of just just forming a flat background, kind of, with the mauve building in the back and the kind of ochre building wall next to the post, catching the shadow.
Yeah. And how the walls are all grungy as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's your theme, the decadence.
Seen better days, and
yeah.
That's what I like taking photos of storefronts, old, rundown storefronts, because they were just probably so proud.
Yeah.
When they were new and had their day, and I'm talking about the buildings, not the people.
Yeah.
And so they're so proud to be new, and kind of a great life, and now they're all shabby, and they and I think that's really interesting. Just the stories
I think
these buildings have.
That could go for the buildings and the owners.
Yeah, sure.
You could be talking about either.
Still operating.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, and some of the people here, they continue to run their restaurants and things until they're like in their 80s and 90s. It's incredible.
And the facade doesn't really matter.
No.
The curb appeal doesn't matter.
Right. And I mean, they still have customers every day, often the same customers 2 or 3 times a week, because it tastes good, or they've built a relationship with them, and it's a beautiful society in many ways, and I'm sure that's part of why you like it here as well. But so, can you give us 3 pieces of advice for someone that wants to shoot, and I know this is probably going to embarrass you as a question, but compelling street photography, because I know that you don't really position yourself that way, but can you think of 3 pieces of advice for someone that wants to shoot street photography?
Yeah. The first one is relax, all right, or feel free. Don't constrain yourselves with the technical parts of photography. Once I kind of got around that, it was so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, if the exposure is not great or it's not correct, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Street photography is about the story. It's not about the sharpness, or it's not about the exposure, really. If maybe, I mean, like it can be really dark and black, you don't have to show everything in the shadows.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from Henri Cartier-Bresson, who's the great street photographer. Yeah. And it's kind of snobby.
Yeah.
He was very wealthy. And he said, sharpness is a bourgeois concept.
Yeah.
So he said sharpness is boring. So I really took that. I saw that and it's like, yeah. I mean, basically, when I tell people, especially people from your tours that come on my tour, they're wildlife and landscape photography, which is very, sharp. Everything is sharp. Yeah. And I told them, no, it doesn't have to be here. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
If it's out of focus, if it's a little bit blur, it's dynamic. So, because everything's moving.
Yeah.
People are moving. You're not going to get everything sharp.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If the exposure is off, is overexposed, that's great.
Yeah.
It adds that atmosphere. That's the way you took it. That's
Yeah.
the way it is. So that's the first thing, is just relax.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry more about the story and the composition.
Yeah.
And the next one is look. A lot of street photography is just looking. Probably like wildlife photography.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you're photographing people, it's wildlife.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same thing, where you spend a lot of time just looking, just constantly looking. Just trying to find the interesting. It's just straight up street photography. You're looking at people. If they're doing anything interesting, which is very hard these days because everybody's in their phones. So you just have to really keep an eye out, or people in different groups and different positions related to each other, forming shapes, or the background. that they're standing in front of. Things like that. So you just have to really, really keep your eyes very active. And I say that your eyes should be much more tired than your feet in street photography, because you have to constantly look. Because people are not that exciting most of the time.
Yeah.
So, like what you said in your last interview with Ruben, you know, you're saying, well, you've been here for so long that, you know, Japanese, the culture is the same. I mean, it's part of you now. And people just aren't that interesting. You know? And so I found that too. It's like, oh, God, people are boring. You know, there's suits and they're, you know, it's just, especially in a culture that that regards conformity very highly. So, you know, it's hard to find something that really draws you in.
I think from your photography, I mean, and I've often said that I've got a big appreciation for street photography. I don't do it so much myself, but I do enjoy looking at other people's street photography and yours especially. And I think that, you know, there is the conformity and the suits and that, and you build that into a lot of your work. And there's one photograph on your website. I think it's on one of the main photos at the moment, with the bars in the background, or look like the bars on the window of a building, and then a guy standing there in a suit. And that is so Tokyo and sort of Japan. So, and I don't mean in a stereotypical way. I mean, it's a really nice depiction of life in Tokyo. And so when you see it and use it that way, it's definitely something that I think adds a lot to your photography.
Yeah. The whole salaryman, which that'd be a horrible life. So, that interests me because it's something I don't understand it.
And I think there's also a certain amount of banality in there as well. I mean,
and that's kind of like a sub project I always have, you know, the plight of the salaryman kind of thing. So
excellent. And that you had one more? Was that that's two?
So this one I've been mentioning throughout. It's like, you know, story tell. So always think of a story about, because that's the main thing about street photography is a story. It's not the technical, not the sharpness. Depends on the person you're photographing. Maybe it's not the composition either. So, but it doesn't have to be the story that the person is telling. It's the story that you're telling, and a story that you can make up. Like if it's like that photo I was telling about the plant. I just made that story up. You know, this lonely on the street corner. You know, lonely plant on the street corner that's like, you know, just discarded. And so that's a story that I told myself. About why, you know, I took that photo, that just regular, just kind of banal photo. But it has a story. If you have a story that you can tell yourself or to somebody, or make up a story about it, then it becomes more interesting. You know, so.
You know, I think that stories are a huge part of many aspects of life. I'm as you spoke there, I'm recalling a few weeks ago, not in my photography, but in my very poor attempt at music, one of the synthesizer softwares that I use brought out a version 2, and it was a free upgrade. So I grabbed it, and as soon as I started playing one of the patches or the presets, it was like a really funky sort of keyboard, and it led me instantly to a melody and a rhythm that it's not something I'd done before. And as I trying to make this as short as possible for a photography related podcast. What happened was literally over the course of a few days, this track sort of flooded out of me. And I don't mean that in the sort of, it's an excellent track. It's probably crap. But I was telling my nephew in England, because we compare notes on our tracks as we work on them. And I was telling him about how I'd made a story. There's a flute, there's a part in there. There's two main parts, lead parts. One's a screaming guitar and the other is an alto flute. And they don't match each other at all. But so I don't have them playing at the same time. but I built this story up. I've got this the egotistical guitarist who's being forced to keep quiet for most of the track because I have a thing about egotistical guitarists. So as the band leader in this particular situation, I keep him quiet for most of the time and let him just go off. But then the flute player, or the flautist, I believe you call them, is this like 6 foot tall, slightly overweight guy who's blowing on it way too hard. And I was literally, I was pushing down on the keyboard. I have an expressive keyboard, and I was pushing down and making it sound as though this guy was just going crazy on this flute. But I built this whole story up, and that helped me to form the track. So I think that, in many creative pursuits, building a story, and even if it's completely fictional or built on, with photography, more of visual clues. In this, I guess it was audible clues. I was building a story up, and it helped me to complete probably my. It's still, like I say, I know I'm not brilliant at music, but it's probably my best track so far. And a lot of it was about the story that I built into it. So I'm starting to get a bit of an appreciation for that in music as well as photography. But story, yeah, is totally important. And so, great point, your third point there to finish on. So we've talked earlier a little about, you mentioned your private street photography tours, or your tours around Tokyo, and I often recommend your tours to the guests that come over for my winter Japan tours. Yeah. And I mean, I've never heard anything but good things. Everyone always says that they really enjoy the time with you. So it's definitely worth noting that if anyone is coming to Tokyo and they want to do a tour, then take a look at your website. And like I say, I'll put a link in the show notes for this. But it's urbanweirdphotography.com, right? Yep. So take a look there, and there's a link to your tours as well. And they're like bespoke tours, aren't they? Yeah. You ask people what they want to do, and then just build something for them. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So someone just, you can do an inquiry. They do an inquiry through the website, and I have a little questionnaire saying, what do you want to, like the day and the time of day and how long, and what do you want to see in Tokyo? Do you want to see traditional temples and shrines? Do you want to see the bright light big city, Shinjuku, Shibuya, or old school Tokyo, which is probably the most popular? Or grungy.
Yeah.
Well, grungy is kind of, all of them are kind of grungy. It's kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I respond, and then I kind of ask them, because I usually pick them up at their hotel if it's in the city.
I see. Yeah.
Where they're staying, and that kind of helps me. Okay, figure out the stops.
Yeah.
From there, and. Then I create an itinerary based on what our we email, and I create a kind of rough itinerary about what we can do based on what they want to see. Very rough times, and the itineraries are always flexible, even during that day. If they want to change, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Or if they in the meantime they found something else about Tokyo they want to see, it's fine.
Yeah.
So nothing's ever set in stone, or if they don't, because with the city is very unpredictable. So if we go to some place and it's not busy, it's kind of
yeah.
So I or they will think of something else on the fly to go someplace else, because I can't guarantee something interesting happening. So. Like, I usually take a lot of people to Sugamo.
Oh, yeah.
It's very cute.
That's the old people.
Yeah, Granny's Harajuku.
Yeah.
It's just a very, very cute.
Yeah.
Very
There's
friendly.
a nice temple down there as well, isn't there?
Yeah. It's great for street photography on the weekends, but you have to, because they're old. They're all old people. It's the place to be if you're 65 or older.
Yeah.
And the shops are great and very interesting. And the red underpants stores. And so people usually really like that. It's just a very short up and down the street, but if it's a certain time of day, then if it's late, they all go. No, they're older. They
they've got to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like part of the old school. That's an old school Tokyo because it's up in the upper rim of the Yamanote Loop train line, which is not very touristy at all, and it's very old school part of the city. So I usually take people. Usually, the people want to see because they can do the big touristy things on their own.
Yeah.
They just want somebody to take them someplace where they wouldn't think of
something different, something that a lot of people. I mean, it's important to try and see the hidden parts of a city, and that's what a lot of people ask me. That they'll say, what can I go? I don't want to just do the regular tourist stuff. And the first thing I will say is, well, you're asking the wrong person because I don't do any of it really. But that's why I enjoy, or I'm grateful in many ways for the fact that you do these tours. And there's also Tokyo Times, Lee Chapman, who I've also interviewed as well. He's started to do similar tours. So now there's two people. So if you can't do one, I can ask Lee as well. But you both do street photography, sort of the hidden aspects of Tokyo that people would like to see, but really don't know where to look.
Yeah, because Tokyo can be very daunting if you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, once you're here, you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 13 million population, right? I mean, it's a huge city. But it also, people don't realize that it also spreads way back into the mountains. And so, the 23 wards is the busy area. I live on one of the first cities to the west of the wards. But if you keep going along the train lines here, you go into the countryside and into the mountains. And so
you're still part of Tokyo.
And it's still part of Tokyo. Yeah. So, but so we talked about your website, so people know where to go to find you. Do you do Instagram and stuff like that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get some links from I imagine there's links on your website.
Yeah. Instagram's mainly. It's Urban Weird Photo.
Urban Weird Photo. Okay.
Yeah. I just kind of have a problem with algorithms controlling what I can do.
Yeah.
It just really bugs me. So I don't post often.
Yeah.
I have spurts.
Yeah.
I just hate putting in the hashtags.
Oh yeah.
I hate it.
Well, I mean, I put a few in when I do Instagram, and I do it in spurts as well. But I don't go crazy on the hashtags. To be honest, if someone's already following me, then they'll maybe take a look. If they're not, I'm not overly concerned about trying to reach a huge audience. I just want the people that are interested to be able to see some of my work. So, I'm sure that some of the audience will check it out. And
but I don't do Twitter so much. I'm on there, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't use it so much. And, I do have a Facebook page for Urban Weird Photography, but it's kind of, I'm not a social media person. I'm not really. So
I should take a photo of you rolling your eyes here.
So it's just, Instagram is probably the most,
okay.
But the most active.
Yeah,
of the socials.
But I would definitely recommend that people go and check out your website though. Just even if you only look at the street photography part, although there's obviously a lot more to it. I really enjoy looking at your work, and I guess we'll wrap up. We'll go and get something to eat. But Brian, thanks so much for coming over today and for your time. And I've really enjoyed talking. And
sure, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Just a quick reminder that you can see the images that we spoke about and the links, etc., in the blog post at mbp.ac/685. So please go and check that out. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate this podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye bye.